Welcome back to the Marketing Muscle Up Show. This is episode 3. And today we're going to talk about going behind the scenes in fitness businesses and the conversations that are happening in the marketplace. I'm pretty excited for this episode 3. Let's try and hit the 40 episodes in 40 days. And I've got Ev joining us again. She put me through some questions the other day, so I thought I'd have her back. How you doing, Ev?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Amazing. Got over your birthday celebrations?
Yeah, birthday lockdown celebrations.
Amazing.
And Ev, I thought we'd really tackle some things that are happening at the moment in the fitness industry and the fitness business in regards to marketing. And I actually got the name confused. The name Marketing Muscle Up Show. I wanted to talk about why we called it that.
Yeah, great idea. I mean, we came up with this name 3 years ago when we tried to start this podcast earlier.
Yeah, so it was a 3-year-old name, and we tried to revive it and get it going. But the whole concept of Marketing Muscle Up is to muscle up your marketing.
Yeah,
and that's one of the big things the big focus around this podcast, because I certainly believe that when your marketing has a bit of muscle behind it, everything works better. Sales, client retention, growth in the business.
Yep.
So it's almost like, yes, the other day we talked about, staying in your lane. And for us, it's about, if we can have a marketing funnel that flows, everything else sits a bit better.
Now that reminds me of, and we kind of left off the other day with you finishing up your fitness business in Neutral Bay and going for a year on cruise ships. And I don't know, but I'm thinking you probably learn a lot in that time around marketing and sales and muscling up your marketing.
Yeah, well, let's go back there, and we might use this episode to give a brief background. And to me, I love backgrounds because that's where I learn a lot about marketing, by the way. So I one of the first questions I ask anybody when we do strategy, I always ask them for the background of what they've done in the past, because the past then doesn't equal, but there's a big connection with the future and what you're going to need to actually add on or subtract depending where you go. But your question was what happened. So back to our story. This is like, let's go back to the story a little bit. Episode 1, I touched on asking my parents for a lot of money and taking a loan off them.
Yep.
And so towards the end, it was about a year and a half, and I said someone came in and purchased the business. And so I bought a business with my business partner, my boss at the time. I asked my parents for a loan, take money off their house. And I learned a lot, first of all, in running the fitness studio. I learned a lot. My first lesson was don't rush things. And it was the second day that I had the studio, and I decided, let's surprise my clients in the morning when I come in and do put a newsletter up on the wall. That's what you did back in those days. And I wrote a sign to say all the improvements that I was going to be doing in the studio. I'm going to get new equipment and some new towels and all those kind of things. I thought, I'm so excited. I typed it up on the computer that was there, and I wrote it. I was probably there till 11:30, midnight, just making sure it was right, vacuuming the carpet and making sure the studio was nice. I was such a proud owner. And then the next day, I had the morning off. When I say morning off, instead of getting there at 5 o'clock, I got there at 7 o'clock. I had a trainer that was coming in. And then I got in the room and there was graffiti on my newsletter.
Oh, no. I didn't like the improvements?
Well, they said, go back to school, learn to spell. I made a spelling mistake. And it gutted me from day one. And in that moment there, I go, okay, I've got a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing up to do to run this studio. And true story, actually, I was 18 at the time, but I said to all my clients that I was 26 at the time.
Really?
I lied about my age. And that's
Wow.
probably a concept about marketing. I mean, I lied about my age to, everybody in those circles at that time because I didn't think anybody was going to take me seriously.
Yeah.
So, but I'll talk about that in marketing and how you can actually use your age to your advantage. If you're old or young, it doesn't really matter.
Totally.
And I guess when you don't have the confidence and you're young, you've kind of got to, there's a word, fake it till you make it.
Yep.
I don't like that word, but when you go into a business and you've got a lot of older clients, or everybody's older when you're 18, right?
Yes.
You feel a little bit intimidated.
Yeah.
And so I had that story for many years while I was there, until actually the whole year and a half. I owned it for about a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years, sorry. And I lied about my age. Has anybody lied about their age before? Let me know. So anyway, let's talk about transitioning period. And so I had that. This guy came in and said, yep, I want to buy this studio. I said, amazing. Oh my gosh, this is in the flow. And one of the reasons why I sold the studio, because I actually didn't know enough about marketing, I felt. And I was a little bit afraid of where the next lead was going to come from.
Yeah. I think there's probably a lot of people out there with that fear as well.
I had that fear. And I also had another fear of, will I make payday every Thursday? And it's interesting. It wasn't like a problem. I made payday. However, every week on the Saturday afternoon, we had like a calendar for the week ahead. It was just like one piece of paper. There was no Mind Body or anything like that then. And each week you had to fill Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with all the clients. And so every Saturday afternoon, I got terrified because I wasn't sure if the piece of paper would fill up for the next week.
Yeah.
And if the clients didn't book in again, I was thinking, well, what will happen if they don't book in? This money I just invested and the risk that I took from my parents and my business partner, what would happen if nobody booked in again? And so I was almost like, I didn't know if they would keep coming back. And so I had a lot of fear around that as well. So eventually, after I think it was 2 years in the studio, I decided to sell it. I saw a magazine. It was actually next door to Fitness Network. It was the next door. They had the office there in Neutral Bay, and we were the gym.
Yep.
For those who know Fitness Network. And in the magazine, that's where they produce the magazines. There was an advertisement there to work on a cruise ship as a personal trainer. I thought, well, that's really interesting.
So I'm getting out of here. And
so 100%, I thought the same thing. I said, I'm going to get the hell out of here because I am worried as hell.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to go on. And there was also talk the building might be demolished in 5 years. And I think, well, I don't know, like maybe it's just all too much.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to butt in because I think it's interesting that, that's normal business stuff to be worrying about and kind of fearful about. But as an 18-year-old, not that many 18-year-olds have a business and are thinking, like, am I going to make payday? They're thinking, I want to go on a cruise ship.
Yes, totally. I left school in year 10, Ev, and I decided to go down that line. So in a way, I just felt I had the smart, well, not about the smarts. I just had the risk. There's a saying that you're a bit green when you're younger. You're a bit naive. You don't really know. You haven't been burnt before.
Yeah, so you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, and I think that's a great thing to also do. By the way, if you do want to get into business, I think there's got to be a little bit of that about that. We take, pandemic. Nobody knows how to get through this process. Really, there's no textbook on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't know what we don't know, and I think there's a little bit of that you need as you progress through a business or make a business decision.
I think so.
And so then I decided to, this guy came in and I didn't even really have to advertise. So it was, I was blessed. I probably didn't realize how lucky that was at the time. However, then I worked on cruise ships. So the story is I went to England, trained to be it was in City Gym. You had to do an audition in City Gym. But what you had to do is to work on the cruise ship, you actually had to know aerobics. You actually had to teach aerobics. Now, I learned aerobics in my personal training course. I actually learned It's Raining Men, the song, and that's what I did my aerobics to. However, I never used it. And so I was scared as hell going into audition thinking I have to teach aerobics for a year and a half. That's one of the reasons why I nearly didn't apply. However, when I got there was probably another 20 guys there that were thinking the exact same thing as me. They were scared as hell that they have to go and teach aerobics on a cruise ship. So I left. So everybody did their interview at the City Gym in Sydney. And I was last. I left myself last. And I tell you why I left myself last. Because I learned that the person that was doing the interviews, I would hopefully leave a lasting impression. So I put myself last. And I don't know if that was a bit of fate or that, but I got through in the end. And I got myself a ticket to London, where we basically practiced how to sell products as well. That was a big part of the role.
Yeah. And obviously you had to learn to sell when you had your own business, but was that like a bit of a crash course, like in learning how to kind of be a salesperson?
Yeah, it was kind of like a proper professional crash course.
Yeah.
Crash course, by the way. You're only there a couple of weeks until you were told what ship you went onto, and it was really surreal. You went to UK, you did a course, you lived in this YMCA, little place while you're waiting, and then all of a sudden they say, "Yep, go fly to America and jump on a cruise ship." Yeah. Never been on a cruise ship in my life before. Oh no, maybe I did it as a little kid in a holiday at P&O, but it's a little bit different to the American large vessel cruise liners.
Yeah.
So yeah, thankfully, naturally, I think, in talking about naturally, and maybe naturally is not the word, but I understood how to sell, and maybe that came from past history. We look at that,
Yeah.
So we learned how to sell. We learned the process of selling and how to do that. So we went on a cruise line, and if anybody's been on a cruise line, basically the first day you do a tour and you go to the gym. So everybody comes on the Sunday on the cruise liners, they do a tour, and what you do is you book in your sessions for the gym. Monday comes, it's really busy at the gym. Tuesday comes, it's half full, and Wednesday it's dead. Why? Because they find the buffet and they find the drinks. That's how it works.
Totally.
So yeah, we realized that we had to make our sales on the Monday or Tuesday. We had to fill up our calendar on those days. 80% of our work had to be on those days. Otherwise, the rest of the week is dead. Nobody's at the gym. So it's all about timing as well and anything. So we went cruise line for 2 years. I can probably touch on that a bit later. Yep. So that was a really good wake-up call and a really good practice of how to sell. Basically, we were selling supplements and also Bath Synergies. Yes, Bath Synergies detox products to our customers.
Yep.
We run a workshop called Eat More, Weigh Less. And that was a seminar that was run. Never did a seminar in my life before.
Yes.
Did a seminar to 40 to 150 people on a cruise ship. And then from there, you'd make a booking, and the bookings were to check your body fat levels. And so the idea was to sell like a book. It was called The Zone Diet, for those who know the Zone Diet.
Oh, right.
Zone Diet, yeah. Good old Zone Diet. Never heard of it before as an 18-year-old. But I kind of worked it out really fast, and I had a great mentor, and the mentor I had was another person that I was working with, a colleague. It was the fitness industry. He was probably one of my greatest mentors, if I look back, and he showed me how to sell and what to do really clearly. He actually also introduced me to a book called Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. Didn't know who he was either. And by reading the book and by practicing with him, instead of selling what we were supposed to sell, which was a Zone book and some protein bars worth about $200, because remember, I got commissions here of about 5 to 10%.
Yep.
We decided to sell what the Spa girls were selling. And we decided to, instead of taking a 15-minute consultation with somebody, we decided to extend it for 1 hour. Because in 1 hour, we were able to sell a $3,000 product versus a $200 product. And that's kind of the story of how we were able to be number one on 300 plus cruise ships.
Yeah.
Just by selling the right thing to the right people at the right time. Right thing, right people, right time.
Yes. It's funny when I hear you tell these stories, because I think there's so many things that, as an 18-year-old, like you still are doing now. Like, you know, you're still finding the better way, the better thing to sell all the time. Every, you know, in all of our programs, we're always trying to find, okay, like you're doing one-on-one PT, you know, forget doing that. That's not the best way to do it. That's not the best way to make money. Do, you know, like, so you're always kind of, yeah, like, and it's funny to see that you've been doing that since you're 18 years old.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. And that is the key. And I think the key for stability and to growth is, and I know a lot of personal trainers will and fitness professionals listening to this when I pull out the P word, the profit word, the money word, something that I really struggle with for many, many, many years, decades, in fact, is because you do the things that you love to do. You do the things that you want to do. But in fact, what I want to do on a cruise ship is I didn't want to work 6 days like you were told. I wanted to work just the sea days when you were traveling through the sea. And I wanted to take the days off that we were stopped in Bahamas or St. Thomas off. But the only way that I was able to do that was I was able to make enough money to say that I've already made my targets. And that's what my mentor told me. He says, Richard, if we make enough money on these 3 days, the Monday, the Tuesday, and the Thursday, we can take all the other days off if you want to. Nobody's going to say anything. So I said, well, that sounds like a good idea.
So really, the money is secondary to the lifestyle that you wanted to have on the cruise ship.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I had no idea what you were making on a cruise ship. I mean, I had a business that I could have grew, I left and I sold, but.
Because you really went from, being a studio owner, and, you know, like having to turn, like you lived in the western suburbs of Sydney. You had to drive to Neutral Bay every morning, be there 5 a.m., 6 a.m., that kind of thing. You went from that to, hey, I'm just going to work a couple of days a week on a cruise ship, go and sit on the beach on the other days.
Totally. And I had no idea that was the case, but I think the question comes back at what's the opportunity, what's the possibilities in your situation at the moment? And, especially now through COVID and through lockdowns, it's what's the opportunities? Because, and I can tell you right now that when we stopped on different ports, so you'd stop at a different port and you were able to connect with the other cruise ship. And I met some people while in London that we trained with. And you go on a cruise ship, you don't see them again. And then sometimes you have 6 massive cruise liners in ports. And then one day I saw one of my roommates that I shared a room with in London. We caught up and I went and he called me up and he invited me to his cruise ship and he showed me around. It was very similar. And I couldn't believe it, but he was selling the Zone Diet. And he goes, Richard, I hate this job. I hate it. I want to get off the ship. And he was like bawling his eyes out saying, I've got to go home. I'm homesick. I hate it. And that was the case for a lot of different fitness professionals at the time.
Yeah.
Because when you think about, I'm going to go on a cruise ship, I'm going to be a personal trainer, they're thinking about, I'm going to train people.
Yeah.
But the problem is that a lot of people weren't training because they weren't using the gym. And so you're only selling Zone Diets or doing a couple personal training sessions. You only got paid 5% or 10% commissions. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, month 2. And I was on this cruise ship and I was making money. We were top sellers in all the cruise ships. And then this guy came and said, Richard, I saw you list, you're like number 1 or 2 of revenue sales. And I said, yeah, what are you doing wrong? And he goes, I'm selling the Zone Diet. And I go, the Zone Diet, that's only make you $200. You got to sell a $3,000 product. And I realized that the reason why he had such a bad experience is because he was trading a lot of time for money.
Yeah.
And he was told to sell that product and you were told to sell this product. But sometimes you just got to bend a little bit as an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Break some rules.
Some rules. And, breaking rules, it was a good thing because the rest of the cruise industry changed what they were selling based on our records. So you've got to find the gaps in the marketplace. And so unfortunately, I got to him a little bit too late. He decided to leave the cruise ships and call it a day. And a lot of, probably a lot of people listening here, they may have been on a cruise ship and had a bad experience. Either had a really good experience or you had a really bad experience.
Yeah. 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 I think, knowing you, like I get to see up close breaking the rules a bit. And, it's sometimes hard. I'm a rule keeper And Joey is a rule keeper, your wife. And so we sometimes struggle. But then what I see is that actually you break the rules and then the rules change because you broke them and you got a good result. And so then we can't argue with that. We're like, okay, keep breaking the rules. But at some point you would have had you can't stay on cruise ships forever, right?
No, I mean,
so we have to move on. We have to grow up a bit, right?
So I moved on, and how I moved on, the only way I moved on is that you have to love something. And if you can imagine when you're 18, 19 on cruise ships, traveling the world, a pretty good life. And then at that time I was dating Joey, took a bit of a break, and I called her now and again, didn't have mobiles back then. She said, Richard, I'm coming over to America. I'm going to come get you off those ships. So, all right, I'll meet you in America in 6 months' time. But interesting, what got me off the cruise ships, yes, Joey, if she's listening, was that I discovered a new zest. And this is where we do a transition period, is that I saw a lot of heavily obese people on the cruise ship, like families, mum, dad, sister, brother, 3, and they were like 2 or 4 or 6 and parents.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been on an American cruise ship, not an Australian cruise ship, American cruise ship, there's a lot of overweight, like not overweight, I should use the word morbidly obese people.
Yeah.
In wheelchairs, and they go to cruise ships because they don't have to get off. They could drive themselves to the buffet. And I mean, this is the nicest way. And that's the truth when you go on the cruise ships. And in that moment, I saw a family and, I saw a family on the cruise ship. I was standing behind them and I thought, hang on, this is not hereditary. This is because they're making food choices. They're making lifestyle choices. And it really broke my heart. And so I decided at that point I'd be a mission when I go back. And actually on the cruise ship, I already started to write a book around kids' health and kids' obesity and what you can do to help children. So I think it was month 6 or 7 on the cruise ship, I was already writing this book. I was getting my ideas and I was creating it. And I said, when I go back home, I'm going to launch a book. And that's the transition period. And when you try to switch something, it was like I wanted to do that. I had such a burning desire. So I went home. I got stuck away in my parents' caravan in their backyard, Western Suburbs caravan in the backyard. And that was the extra room. I made that my writing cabin, you could say. And I broke the book up into chapters, 12 chapters. And I started to write the book. It took me way too long, never written a book before. And it probably took me about 3 years to write the book. Now, when you're writing a book, you don't get paid. And when you publish it, you don't really get paid either, which I discovered. So in that time, I launched I went back to mobile personal training in a local area. And that was, so I had a mobile personal training business myself, and I had a couple of trainers there. And we kind of launched that and we ran that and, up early starts and doing that thing. And there's a lot of old school marketing strategies there. I got clients relatively fast. I did some great flyers, put them in mailboxes. I just kept doing that. Client would call, I'd close them on the phone relatively fast. And then from there, I always upgraded the client and just got their friends and neighbors and all those people involved. And so I was doing that. At the same time too, my mum came home one day and she said, Richard, I've got our company, she was working for a health company at the time. Our company is doing, got this lady that came and did seated massages. What do you mean, mum? Seated massages? And she goes, yeah, they come in there and they do massage. So that was interesting. So then I don't know if I was Googling back then. Maybe there was Google then. I think there must have been.
Probably. Yeah.
Not that old.
I was Googling in high school, so you definitely had Google around there.
So I Googled these seated massages and I realized that this was a big thing that was happening in companies. And my mission was to help more people and to really get people healthy and fitter. And I thought, wow, what if I could do this for corporates? So then I said to my mum, listen, could I put my quote into your company? Do you think you can give it to your HR person? And at the time, I had no idea. I didn't want to see them.
Could you do massages?
No, I didn't do massages. I just knew massages was a big thing when I worked on the cruise liner. So again, you look at past histories. And so I
Yeah.
started to interview some massage therapists. I put a job out and I said, listen, who's a massage therapist? I bought a mobile massage chair myself so I could own a bit of asset.
Yep.
And then I found a mobile massage therapist, and my quote to my mum's company got through, fingers crossed. And that was how I started a company called Lifestyles Corporate Wellness.
Yeah.
That was the kind of the next progression from that. I had a company called Lifestyles Corporate Wellness. We did massages, we did health checks, doctor's appointments, flu jabs. Funny that we're doing vaccine jabs. It was flu jabs back then. And we did mobile personal training as well, and corporate training. And 50% of our business was mobile seated massages. And we grew that company to, Toshiba, Optus, blue chip companies, Coca-Cola, because it was kind of a leverage effect. I found out that, I could either go deep in growing my trainers in my mobile personal training, or I could really leverage health and help corporations in a leveraged approach through, healthy seminars and like lunchtime learn seminars and things like that. And that was kind of really where I would say, my first proper business, you could say, from scratch really took off, having to train staff and grow a team. We grew a team of about 100 different contractors and, get business through the door and stuff like that. So we ran that for a few years until I decided to sell that. That's another story. And it's just an accumulative effect of, like we talked about episode 1 about staying in your lane. And at this point here, I already switched multiple lanes. I was switching lanes like they were going out of fashion at that point.
But you still had this, it feels like you still had this one thread through it all. And you just said it just before, is that you wanted to help people get healthier.
Yeah, it was always a thread. It was always the same thing.
Yeah. So I think you always have, it's like you're trying all these different things to see what sticks for you, but it really always comes back to that, maybe you call it a mission, that, that it's like you really have this passion to make people healthier.
Yeah, it was that passion and it was that passion too to continue to write my book. And when I was writing my book and when I was doing I was getting phone calls from the UK, they're called Steiner. If anybody's worked for those, a whole bunch of you I'm sure have. And they were calling me up and say, Richard, can we get you back on ships? Can we get you back on ships? They wanted good salespeople, and I was doing good when I was on there. And they switched me a few different ships at the time. And for some reason, like, I just kept saying no. And I was like, so determined. No, I'm writing this book. I'm finishing this book.
Yeah.
It was more the book than the business, the Lifestyles Core Wellness. But it's interesting then, as Lifestyles Core Wellness grew, I finally found a publisher for my book. Probably when I started to when I finished, it might have been 6 years, possibly.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I had it sitting there for a couple of years after that because I thought, whatever. Yeah. It's done, but I can't find a publisher, and I'm kind of doing corporate wellness now.
Yeah. And so it just sat there for a bit.
Sat there for a bit until I said, okay, this is not cool. I need to get this published.
Yeah.
And we found a publisher. They're called Rockpool Publishing at the time. And that was an interesting journey, publishing a book. If anybody's published a book with a publisher, it's a very interesting journey.
Yeah. I actually listened to a podcast the other day that from someone who self-published a book and has gone through a publisher, and they didn't want the hassle of the publisher. Like there's a point that it doesn't become your own. And it's a thing to sell for them.
Well, yeah, the publisher for us there was a working title called, I think, Healthy Families.
Yeah.
How to live a healthy family. And at the time we were about to go to publish on that, and we did the contracts and things like that. And then I said, and we were learning internet marketing back at the time, that we started to go deep in internet marketing, go to a lot of internet marketing conferences and events. And we were going heavily in that space, me and Joey, learning about how to sell online. All of a sudden I thought, the title's wrong. It was like the 11th, 12th hour. And then my publisher must have hated me. I know she hated me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I literally got the books pulled off for print and I said, change the title. And she goes, you can't do that. I'm in control of the book. I said, yeah, but it's not going to sell. And I convinced her that it was the wrong title. And so that we changed the title to a title called Please Mum, Don't Supersize Me.
Yep.
And some may think, well, that's a little bit harsh. Again, when you're young, you don't really see everything. But what I saw what's going to get more attention.
Yeah.
What was the title that was going to get more attention? What was going to get more attention? And we hired a PR agent at the time. And, he was in our ear. And I said, listen, I want to get to America and I want to publish this over there. And I want to take over the world with this book on the 12th hour. And I said, that's the name that we're going to do. And so we launched that name.
Yep.
The book, and the book got a lot of media attention. And it's probably a whole story in itself, but the book got a lot of media attention. We were picked up on A Current Affair, Today Tonight. We did 2 episodes of A Current Affair.
Yeah.
Probably just heaps of publicity everywhere. We're in front of the bookstores because we had the belief with our publisher then, and she pushed it heavily. And we were using some internet marketing strategies as well to ensure that message will get to the world. Because remember, I had the idea for America, not Australia, and so let's get it to the States.
Yeah.
So it's every journey connects with the other one.
It does connect, absolutely. And I just see, working with you now for 7 years, there's so many things that just connect now. It's like, yeah, I've pulled many things off the shelf at the 12th hour because it wasn't right. But I'm always grateful for that because you have a conviction about what's right. And I have to say, it's usually the right thing.
Yeah, the gut.
Yeah, it is. It comes back to the gut instinct. And I think it was interesting that during that time, it's kind of like the internet marketing world, and you're starting to get into a lot more kind of like, how can we get attention? Not like, because I think like a lot of the stories that you told is like, the cruise ship, or like on episode 1 where we talked about, I don't know, did we talk about the lawnmower story? I think we did. Or no, we talked about the paint numbers, yeah.
Another day.
And I think you and even like in your mobile PT business, it was like you got attention offline. It was like hustle mode offline. And then now you're kind of trying to switch around through the book and corporate wellness, and then kind of, where you're kind of coming into now in your life is this whole internet marketing world, right?
Yeah, well, I think also too, you have stages in life, and this is really important when you're starting a business. Especially when you're holding off starting a business, that you may be looking at what's happened. And that's a big problem because someone started a business, and I don't call it, there's key times in this universe what's happened. The TV in the 1950s came out. You had 3 stations, 7, 9, 10, and there was attention only on 3 places. Then what happened? Radio, or maybe radio first, then TV. Yep. And then what happened? You had this thing called the internet that came out, 1990-ish, 95, or very early 95-ish, 93, went a bit more viral in 2000. And the internet changed a lot of items. And then, you fast forward another 10 years and you have more faster stream internet. You've got more platforms you can use, things like that. You've got TV now on lounge room TVs, I should say, which weren't there before. And then, then we had a product called Apple that came out and able to now start to listen to devices instead of not just being sitting on a home desk computer. So in those critical times, what happens? You have opportunities.
Yeah.
And you have opportunities that come out. And in that time, there was internet marketing time. It was fresh. It was young. You could probably pay, a couple of cents, 1-2 cents for a lead on Facebook. Google was the same. 50 cents version. Yeah, it was the early days. And so everything has a space. And we'll get to digital in a bit, but as we go through digital platforms, Facebook, everybody go, oh, Facebook doesn't work. Facebook's hard. I'm not getting results of Facebook. Well, Facebook's been around for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good run. And so when we talk about getting attention, it doesn't really matter where the attention is. And we have a company called Com Marketing. It's all about marketing. We do a lot on digital marketing, but actually we changed the name back to Com Marketing instead of complete on marketing because we know that sometimes it's digital, sometimes a billboard, sometimes it's a hat, sometimes a flyer. at the moment is where is the attention? Where is it cheap? Where is the attention? Where is it cheap? And that's what you want to focus on with marketing, is figuring out, well, where is it going to get to and what do I need to do? And so in those days, internet marketing was the latest, it was the hottest thing. And so I had the belief that if we call it this name, Please Mum Don't Suicide Me, it will sell more copies. And I had that belief to give to my publisher, who wasn't in that space, but it was something new and something fresh.
Yeah.
So as you progress through, you've got to realize that you can't copy somebody if they've been doing it for 10 years, because they're on the end of their cycle.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful of the stuff that you look at. If you are going to cross paths and realize, okay, well, I mean, look at podcasts, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, podcast has been around forever.
Yes.
And here we are, getting into a podcast. Now, how long do we know podcasts is going to around for? We don't know. It's not the start. I wouldn't say it's matured 100%, but it's definitely maturing. And so every device that you're on, if it's Facebook, Instagram, podcasting, TikTok, and we've seen all those trends that come out, they don't always have a lifespan. What has a lifespan is your secret sauce, is your authenticity, is your brand, is your name, most importantly. And that's the only thing that we can bank on to a degree. And so as I switch to different businesses and industries, and I think now we're at the book. And as I switched that, I still took my knowledge, but I applied it to a different market. And when I launched Corporate Wellness, one of the ways that I did get into large corporations was twofold effect. It was one, it was brand. I used the internet really well. I bought a domain name called corporatewellness.com.au. Though you can't get those domain names, as you know now, Ev. They're hard to find. I bought that for probably
they cost $1 million.
Yeah, $20. And I learned a thing called SEO, search engine optimization. I stayed up late every night for probably 12 months. It was called the second shift. Everyone knows what the second shift. Second shift happens after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For me, it happened after about 9:30.
Yeah.
You go from 9:30 to about 1:30. That was kind of max for me, and I can function the next day okay. And I did that for 12 months, learning the art of search engine optimization. And so when I launched Corporate Wellness, what happened? I launched it in a space where other businesses were still operating well before me, but they did not have the knowledge of digital marketing at the time. So I was out beating very established brands. I was getting the leads and inquiries in, while other brands were just traditional. They were still struggling with what is a website, where I was ranking for every search domain name when people typed in corporate wellness, seated massages, all those kind of things. Now, obviously, it's saturated, but it's a cycle of everything. And so when you start to understand, can I switch? Should I switch? You've also got to look at maturity of where you are as a person, also maturity of what's going on to next, and can you execute relatively fast? So when opportunities do come up, you've got to have that gut instinct that, I can just move across to here and I'm good to go. Instead of thinking and guessing too much.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about opportunities and kind of transitioning, obviously you're not running Corporate Wellness anymore. How did that, is it another sense of there was some fear around it? That's kind of what got you out of being at the studio?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like in every business, you have staff that you got to manage, and sometimes they're not that good. I'm sure everybody that has staff can relate.
Yep.
A couple quick stories there. I took a massage therapist on, and they went to visit, I think it was like a Toshiba company or something like that. And they went on site, and then the organizer, the Toshiba HR lady, called me and says, "Richard, your massage therapist is lying on the ground asleep with their legs on our photocopier." Okay. And
that's the call that you want to get as a businessman.
Totally. Those calls. And then I was managing, someone was sick, and it was an event for like 20 therapists was working at once. I had 5 people sick. Yeah. I had to go and figure out how I cover that. And I didn't do massage on purpose. I never wanted to go down that. I did nearly once. I tried to fill in for somebody, but I didn't. And so I think it was just a combination of, I think it was one of the greatest businesses. And I think today, Corporate Wellness, wow, it's on fire if you have one of those companies now. I call it the leading edge, not the bleeding edge. And a little bit impatient from me, I would say, is that I love the leading edge. Sometimes I'm on the bleeding edge, but mainly leading, but sometimes bleeding. And when you're on the bleeding edge, you need patience. If you get into markets really early, you need patience to ride it out all the way through, and then you'll be number one, number two in the marketplace. I didn't think I had the patience at that time, because here I was maybe 27, 28, 26. I think me and Joey got married around that time, and I wanted to try something new. I wanted to try this internet marketing thing in a big way. And I guess the quick story of that is that when I had Corporate Wellness, somebody called up and said, can I see a picture or a video of one of your trainers so we can know who they are when they're coming in the door and things like that? And so, and so what happened, I said, that's a good idea. So I went around to film my PT, my personal trainers at the time. It was about 10 of them. And I filmed them all, and I thought, oh, wow, how am I going to get this file to the person? Like, what would I do? Like, how would I get it on? And it was at YouTube, and
there was no Dropbox then. There
was no Dropbox, and it was like, oh, I don't want to put it on YouTube because then they can, I said, oh, let me just. So in that time, then that was the idea. I created this website called Meet Your Personal Trainer. So I said, Meet Your Personal Trainer. Sorry. So I said, if I can do it for my 10, I'm thinking, well, everybody needs this help. Everybody wants to see their trainers or their potential trainers, and that's how we will launch another business called Meet Your Personal Trainer. So I think I had more drive for the art. And I think that's the transition period here. I had more drive. And again, my mission was the same. My concept was that I hated seeing personal trainers that are so good at what they do not being recognized for their craft, their art, because they just didn't know how to market themselves. And it frustrated me. And so I did something about it, because I wanted to launch a directory, and then basically we sold Lifestyles Called Wellness on, because there was a couple of things. There was staff that was just over it, wanted to try something new. Hadn't yet thought that was a thing, and I sold it. And that sale was a little bit harder, but it was still a very good sale. And I was really proud of being able to start a business, grow a business, and then sell a business at that part. And that was something, that was the second sale that I had, but it was the first from when I started from scratch. And so it was a really good moment in my career. Well, I won't say, I don't think it's a career, I call things in my life, where, somebody wrote a nice big check and I banked it on a Friday, and I was like, wow, this is so cool.
It's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it got me on the process that things can last a long time if you want them to, or things can last a short time.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what you want out of life. And I don't think I found yet what I really, really loved.
Yeah.
And that was leveraging and ensuring that people could be great marketers in their business, specifically fitness, because I had that passion for fitness. I had that drive to ensure that we could still have a healthier nation, a happier nation. It sounds a bit warm and fluffy, but it's the truth. It's like, that was the burning desire that way. And to me, if I could go then market 1,000 trainers on this directory, well, that would reach more people that way.
Yeah. And you see that through the book. You see, like, you want to create healthy people. You see that kind of then come into, like, even when you helped your friend on the cruise, like, you wanted to help him be a better salesperson to kind of, sell more and make more people healthy. And then it's like, now you've got this, this site where you've got hundreds of trainers getting leads through MYPT, and you kind of see everything just come full circle. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it is a crazy world. And I think it comes down to endless opportunities.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and I think the concept back then, it wasn't a scarce mentality. It was a flowing mentality.
Yep.
And I felt that I could keep creating and keep flowing and stay in that zone. I think in the early parts of that, it was really easy, but I can tell you right now, and maybe I don't have time for this episode, but next, but I can tell you right now that once a thing called comparison and comparing starts to set in, it's not as flowy that it once was. Once you have a massive hurdle that comes your way, or once you have the first kind of hit in regards to, like, something doesn't go right your way, your mind starts to look at things differently. And that's probably where maybe I can leave off, because
I think so.
that kind of takes us into a state where when things don't go right in your business, when things aren't flowing, for me, first few years are really flowing. When things aren't flowing, what happens is a few things can happen. One, you just freeze, you stop growing, you stop learning, you start listening to people that you probably shouldn't listen to, you stop reading books and information and tapes, and because there's a loss that's happened, there's something that's dramatically happened in your life. And in that moment there, there was me and Joey on a reality TV show, we got kicked in the guts pretty hard, and I think from that moment there, we started to something changed and adjusted in what we did.
I think so. I'd like to explore that in another episode, I think, because there's whole stories around that. But I think that, you look at like you sold a really big company, Lifestyles, and, you're really successful on the ship, and you had this book, and there's a sense of like in your teens and your 20s, you're like, everything is golden. Everything I touch is golden and I'm a success. And then you're right in that, like, you're on the Amazing Race, and you had some stuff happen there. And then even with MIPT, like there was a point where, SEO is like the golden goose, and then suddenly it's not. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, I've got there's kind of a sense, I think in the next episode, we'll talk a little bit about maybe growing up and like, okay.
Thanks for reminding me the pain stuff that with a thing called Panda. So let's talk about Panda and SEO, and when things don't go your way, because there's a whole bunch of those stories as well, and I think it balances it out.
It does.
And that's the growth of a business or an operator that's running different businesses. There's got to be a growing somewhere in that.
There has, and I think that goes on to like how, pivoting and knowing how, when things don't go right, how to actually then keep going and keep kind of moving forward. So right. I think that'll be a fun episode.
Yeah, let's do that. I might bring Joey into one of those episodes.
Yes,
hear the other side of the story as well.
Love it. Well, this has been a really fun episode. I learned, I know a lot of your stories, Richard, but I learned just little bits, surprising parts.
Totally, me too. I forget about half these stories. But team, if you are listening in, definitely what you want to be doing is subscribe. Go down to subscribe for the next episode, so you get notifications that they're on their way, and then you get first dibs. If you love that, leave us a review, because that's going to help to show that you're giving that impact back to somebody else that can also go, oh, that was cool, and you've also got influencers that are watching your every move too. So that's going to help people to really get clear and that way on it. So if you enjoyed that, definitely subscribe, leave us a review, and we back next time. Might get Ev back on here. I think Ev's starting to squeeze some stories out of me, so
I am.
Let's get Ev back on a couple of episodes. But in this podcast series, we're going to drop some behind the scenes content in, some strategies that I've done. So you would have heard some of those already, and so there's going to be a whole mixture, because everybody learns in different ways, from interviews, from conversations, from being that fly on the wall. And that's what I love about these podcasts, is you're going to be able to fly on the wall behind strategy sessions, client strategy sessions. So that's probably that's one of my highlights that's going to be having this podcast. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, team, and I'll speak to you next time.